I'm Aaron Mesh. I'm the news editor at Willamette Week. This is the endorsement interview for Measure 112. We have about half an hour to chat today. I think it's a fairly straightforward measure, so I think we can do it in half an hour. The goal is to get an understanding of whether or not we should endorse this measure. My understanding is that there is no organized opposition. So what I would ask is that each of you please take a moment to introduce yourselves to our viewing audience and to the editorial board, which today consists of Anthony Effinger and myself. And then give us a brief summary of why it is we should endorse this measure. Angela, if you want to get started.
Okay. Angela Martin. I'm the principal at Insight Strategies Northwest and in the honored position of having been brought on as the campaign director. I'm actually going to let Sandy and Troy speak more to the why.
Wonderful.
I'm here as a resource with questions that might come up.
My name is Troy Ramsey. I work for Oregon Justice Resource Center.
I'm Sandy Chang. I'm the executive director of the ACLU of Oregon.
Great. Sandy, could you give us a brief summary of this measure and why it is that you're asking Oregonians to vote for it?
Yes. So currently in the Oregon Constitution, there's language that says that there's an exception for slavery, that slavery and indentured servitude can still be punishment for a crime. And this measure would basically eliminate that language from the Constitution. This measure also allows for courts still to do alternatives to incarceration programs, such as education, community service, treatment, counseling, and other alternatives. But this is the position of the ACLU of Oregon. We fight for our fundamental civil liberties and civil rights as set out by the U.S. and Oregon constitutions. And we really look to both the federal constitution and the Oregon Constitution as setting out our fundamental values. There simply is no place in the Oregon Constitution for slavery of any group or individual. And so this is easy.
It does seem very easy. Let's just ask a few questions to make sure it's not possibly more complicated.
Yes. But I would love for Troy to also share Troy's experience and why.
Yeah, so from my own experience, I was formerly incarcerated myself. So I was kind of like at the ground level of this getting started. So I had worked with some of the individuals that had worked with Willamette University in order to get this kicked off and get it to where it's at now to work. And so, you know, one of my real passions for this is it's finna be 2023 and we're still talking about slavery in our Constitution. Like, how can that even be possible in this day and age that we live in, that the slavery is still possible in this loophole that creates it? So what we're doing is, and we want every Oregonian to do it, and hopefully we can get a big push to get this really out there so that people really know about this Measure 112 and what it's all about. 112, it takes away slavery and involuntary servitude out of the Oregon Constitution. So that language will be wiped out of the Constitution. Like Sandy was saying, it's not going to affect the courts or how the courts operate. It's not going to affect DLC, how DLC operates. So there won't be any changes to none of that. So I know people keep saying about what's bigger and what's bigger. There's nothing bigger. It's clear as day. It's black and white. It's right in your face. Only thing we're doing is we're asking for you to help us get this language out of our Constitution so we can fall in line with Utah, Nebraska, Colorado, and hopefully, you know, there's a couple other states that are, I think it's Vermont, Tennessee, Alabama is on there for this year to have it on there. I think that's on their ballot too, to get rid of the language out of their Constitution as well. And so, yeah, definitely. As you can see, I'm passionate about it.
Yeah.
It's just, it resonates with me real bad. And that's because being an African American man, just like how do you say that you still hear the word slavery and you can just go pull out your Constitution and you can still read it there. It's the same loophole that's in the 13th Amendment.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Is there a copy of the language by any chance that you have of where this is still in the Constitution and what clauses it's mentioned in the Oregon Constitution?
I have it written out. I don't have like the Constitution.
That's okay.
I should walk around with the pocket Constitution, right?
It's funny that you say that because my coworker, I was just asking him because he walks around with the Constitution in his pocket.
Mm-hmm.
And I said, "Man, why do you walk around with that?" And he said, "Just in case." And then just here we go, right now, just now.
Just in case.
Well, in
Great
case
opportunity.
it occurred.
Yeah,
He has the Oregon one.
Yeah, he has the Oregon and the federal one. He has both. So it's just like, I was like, that would have been perfect.
We should have one. We should have those in this room, actually. Honestly.
And I usually have it, but I don't today.
We should keep a copy. We should keep both in the room here because it comes up.
Oh, it does. It comes up a lot. The Constitution.
Well, we just had another.
There are a number of measures. So
Yeah.
I think a really important question happens to be in your materials, and I'm going to ask it. What effect would this have on the prison system, or on work camps, or on people working on the side of highways on beautification projects for the state?
Nothing.
Nothing. And I think first, this measure actually went through the legislative referral process. So this wasn't put on the ballot by signatures. It was actually passed by legislators. And there was language put in there not only about deleting the slavery language from the Constitution, but also putting in language to make sure that alternative programs like this, these work programs, education programs, treatment programs, can continue.
Yes.
But we can also look to the experiences of other states that have already passed, like Nebraska, Utah, Colorado. All of these other programs have continued. So I would say based on experience as well as intentionality of the legislature and the measure language, we don't anticipate an effect. That being said, and Troy, I would really love to ask you about this too.
Yeah.
We work a lot with incarcerated individuals who will contact us when they feel that their rights are being violated in the Oregon Department of Corrections. And what we have heard from folks is that sometimes the staff actually at Oregon Department of Corrections will say, well, we can treat you like a slave, or we can treat you like an indentured servant. And that they will actually sometimes use very racist language. And we've also heard about this from actually staff who are concerned from the Oregon Department of Corrections. So I think what's really important with this constitutional change is also to make clear what Oregonians' values are and have that culture shift also happen at Oregon Department of Corrections.
Do you see any, and I don't want to in any way make light or make this sound like I don't think it's important, but do you see any practical change in policy that comes out of this? Like, is there going to be something that we do differently in the state, or is this purely removing outmoded and offensive language?
First,
Purely removing the language. That's all it's going to do. It's not going to affect nothing in the Department of Corrections, nothing with the courts, nothing in any lower level or whatever. Only thing we're asking for is for the Oregon voters to align with their values and morals. What is your morals and values? Do you stand by getting rid of slavery and involuntary servitude out of our Constitution? That's exactly what we're here for, and that's exactly what we're talking about. And it has no effect on anything else except for to get rid of this language out of our Constitution and for us to be aligned with our own morals and values as Oregonians.
I would hope, though, that in the future that there are more conversations by communities and the public about how people who are incarcerated are treated. Because I think right now a lot of folks, especially if they don't have experiences themselves or through family, it's a black box. But there is also a lot of harm that happens in that system. And is that what we want? Do we want to treat a certain group of people with inhumanity? Because I think that really negatively impacts all of us. And so there won't be any specific policy changes that come out of this, but I do think this is very important to be very clear about where Oregonians' values are, and then to have conversations about how do we want to treat incarcerated people so that it's reflective of our values, and not just a punishment, but really making sure that that system rehabilitates and helps folks get better, and when they come back into our communities, that they're full members of our communities. And so those are really important conversations, but it's pretty hard to have when our Constitution says incarcerated people are slaves.
I guess the only question is, why did it take so long? I mean, how did this
And
persist?
that's the thing about it is just
It's just
we need to give a lot of praise to the guys inside the penitentiary, because for them to have their voice, to bring their voice to the front and do this with Willamette University, the students, in order to say, hey, look, what can we do from inside of here that can make a change for everyone?
So
Yeah.
the impetus of this was a Willamette University collaboration with people who were incarcerated?
Yes.
Okay.
This is exactly how this started.
How long ago?
2000 and, was it 2019, 2020? Yeah, something around there, yeah.
That's fantastic.
They
There's
had
been
to
so
learn-
many great partnerships like that,
Yeah.
especially on capital punishment.
Yes.
Yeah. For them, it was listening to them was a real learning process of, okay, how do you bring about a legislative referral? So it was, ground up, everyone learning how to be an advocate, going and building the support in the legislature, answering questions that, what about this? What about that? They succeeded in getting this referred by 85% of legislators. How many?
There's very few things I can think of that,
Yeah, I don't-
that you can get 85, I'm sure you can get 85% of people in the legislature to agree that it's sunny outside.
Yeah.
Exactly, yes. And so that just lets you know, even where they stand as Oregonians, is, hey, we need to rid this out of our Constitution.
I think too, in terms of why it took this long, there are a lot of negative things that came out of the U.S.'s history of slavery and racism that continues today, right? And we saw that in 2020, people said we see a lot of these continuing systems of racism that are really honestly hard to fix. We're trying to fix them, but there's a lot of stuff, right? And I think, but this is the thing, this is something that we can do now. When people said Black Lives Matter, let's do this. This is something that's easily doable. There are a lot of other consequences of slavery and racism that are much more complex, which we still need to work on. But let's also work on the easy stuff too and just get this done.
Here's a question. I think we've established pretty clearly what this would and would not do. It's a little off topic, but is it, am I wrong, or has the ACLU of Oregon been kind of quiet recently? I feel like we used to hear from you a lot more.
I think we've been in a rebuilding stage. And so I actually joined the ACLU of Oregon in February of 2021. So it's been about a year and a half. And so we've been in a rebuilding stage. But I think what we've been doing right now is really building, I would say planting seeds and making sure that we are really centering communities and their leadership and projects. Because when we want to do systems work, I don't think any one of us individually or organizations can come in as individual saviors. We've seen that. It doesn't work, right? You can't really identify problems if you truly haven't had those experiences. So I think Measure 112 is that really wonderful and beautiful example of folks with lived experiences truly working to create the solutions, and then advocates at Willamette University helping to amplify that leadership and getting the solution done. And so that's been our approach, but right now we've been planting a lot of seeds in terms of building relationships, identifying community leaders, and really supporting that work instead of saying we know it all and this is how we're going to fix it, because that hasn't worked. So we are trying a different approach.
Sure. Mr. Ramsey, I'm going to let you have the closing word here today.
The closing word is vote yes on 112. That is the definitely closing word.
All right, very good.
I hope you get the turnout from the general public that you got, or better than you got from the legislature.
Yes, definitely.
All right, thanks very much to all of you.
Yes.
Take it as a compliment that we don't have a lot more questions.
I know.
Oh man, yeah.
Come back.
Propose them if you have them, man.
Can you come back and?
Hey, here you
I got
go.
a few other things we could get rid of.
Here you go. That's